how it works. To build meditation, dhyana, you have to go through the steps as we learned them. So you start by, of course you start with the moral principles and precepts, the YAMA and niyama, to calm the waters, so to speak, to gradually get rid of restlessness because of unknowingly, subconsciously violating natural laws. That is maybe still a little bit difficult to understand, but when you practice asana, physical exercise, you are installing harmony on physical level. Of course, that is not limited to your physical body, because to stand still in a physical pose, you have to concentrate mentally. So you're already starting integrating body and mind. As a result of your exercises, your efforts, you build more and more energy. But not just energy, that energy is also more harmonious, and it becomes more and more focused, so it becomes kind of stronger. Before, I drew your head with your thoughts throwing out all your energy, like a house in the winter of which the windows are open. That is how most people function. Uncontrolled thought. But as a result of your concentration, your energy literally becomes more concentrated, like a laser beam. And you all know what is the result of a laser beam. Laser beam is the result of a lot of energies being brought together and concentrated. The energies brought together are concentrated into one single beam, and that beam can cut through concrete and iron. You have to look at it a little bit in that way. If you manage to stop this process of losing energy in your life, become more and more concentrated, that translates into your energy being more and more concentrated, like the idea of a laser beam. So you become more powerful, like the laser beam, literally. To come to real meditation, you have to go through that process of concentration. We have done that in the past 2 Saturdays. It's a little bit too early, like I mentioned before, to already start with real concentration. So we are kind of like in elementary school or kindergarten. Children learn play-wise, and that's what you do. At the end of the asana practice, you sit down for 15-20 minutes. You observe what's going on without actually really trying to meditate. If at this stage you really try to meditate, you may get a headache or just even produce more thoughts than there already were. As a result of your observation each time, observation in itself is inherent, is equal to sattva. This may sound a little bit strange, but maybe you can remember as a child you were sitting in front of the window daydreaming, just staring out of the window, looking actually at nothing, and your mind was flowing freely, as if it was not your mind, not your thoughts, daydreaming. Daydreaming is an uncontrolled state of samadhi, which is the highest form of meditation. It's uncontrolled. It happens coincidentally as a result of coincidental harmony occurring in you. As an adult, we often more and more lose the ability to daydream, but children are very pure still, very divine in a way, but not developed yet, not controlled yet. Contemplating on something, observing something, brings you to sattva. That is difficult, because then again you rely on something happening spontaneously when the circumstances are right. So in yoga we turn it around. We try to create sattva whenever we want by learning all these difficult things. But we can use this to our advantage. After the exercises we have built some harmony, as a result of which we automatically become more reflective, observing, and so we sit down and we just try to immerse ourselves. Like when you take a bath and you just slide into the water and you immerse yourself. Why you are learning all the yamas and the niyamas is because every time you are disturbed, it is probably because you have committed violence, or your motivation was not pure, or you were full of desire to get harmony, to get pleasant feeling, to achieve meditation or something. So meditation is something that is very sensitive to any kind of emotion or feeling that you have. The moment that you apply violence, which you do when you force yourself into meditation, you achieve the opposite. You are disturbed. You will feel resistance, not only in your body, but also in your mind, mentally. If your motive is not pure, or you are full of desire, also, there are forces at work in you that do not allow you to... You are mentally busy, in fact, rather than busy with your heart. And at this point it's a little bit difficult to understand, but I have to tell you this anyway. When you are engaged in something because you want it, because you love it, because you really feel attracted to it, your heart is in it. Yeah? When your heart is in something, it is very easy to immerse yourself in it. You give yourself to it. You surrender yourself to it. However, if you approach it mentally, which you do, for example, if you just want to have a certificate, or because you think it's just cool to practice yoga and to belong to a yoga group or family, if the motive is what is the opposite of interior? Ulterior?
Exterior.
If the motive is exterior, can you say it like that?
Extrinsic.
Extrinsic.
Intrinsic. Anti-extrinsic.
Ulterior is the right word if you have an ulterior motive.
Yeah, if the motive is ulterior, for example, material, or related to creating image, building image, you are mentally engaged, but not with your heart. You understand that? You understand the difference? So, what happens, the big difference, is that when you do something with ulterior motives, you are not fully engaged. As a teacher also, if I would stand here, just because it's cool to be a teacher, or because I have no other choice in life, and this is the only way to earn a living, I would be here reading from a book and just dryly repeat what has already been written. But when you do something with your heart, you are fully engaged, you are capable of touching the essence of whatever it is that you do, and you become a master as a result of that. Not in one day, of course, but over time. We all have to learn more and more in life to start functioning from the heart. We also call that soul consciousness. We start functioning from the heart. as long as you have ulterior motives, you are mentally very busy, it is very difficult to sit down and just be quiet. It's very difficult to sit down and just observe, leave alone, focus all that energy, and come to real meditation, dhyana. That is impossible, because, and there you have, for example, the principle of purity, saucha. Your motive is not pure. I've told you the first day that you came, and also the second day, that to practice real yoga, you really have to be courageous. And here, again, you have a reason why. Because how do you get to this? How do you practice purity, for example? You do that by honestly consulting with yourself whether what you do is really what you want. And if that's not the case, you refuse to do it. That is not always easy, and you should be careful not to radicalize, because there are situations in life where you cannot just say, hey, listen, I don't want to do this, so get lost. This is, for example, the case with your work. If today you come to the conclusion that you are not working with your heart, you don't say tomorrow to your boss, hey boss, you know what, bye. I take a plane and I go to the tropics or something. Of course, if you do that, you can do that, and you say, hey, you know, I'm just following my heart. My teacher told me, follow your heart. But you will see that as a result of that, you will create numerous other problems as a result. So the approach always must be a sensible approach. And so if today you come to the conclusion that what you are doing professionally is not what you really want, then you do not quit your job, but you quietly start investigating what it really is that you want. And that can take years sometimes. But in that process, you will have some idea of what direction you want to go. You already know that you want to work in an organization, like a big company, or that you really feel revulsion of doing that you want to be independent. So if that's the case, you want to be independent, but you don't know really yet what it is that you want to do, which direction to go, well, at least get some education then in how to run a business. Learn business administration and marketing and sales techniques and those kind of things, just in line with what you think it is that you desire, want to pursue in life. And along the way, you will get some ideas. Sooner or later, there will be a link, click, with something that you really want to do. That can be, of course, a yoga teacher. So why do you have to be courageous? Because you stop from this moment on always taking the easy way in life. You cannot do that anymore when you consult with yourself. Because when you're honest to yourself, you practice purity also, which means that you are consistent and consequent. Even though it seems comfortable to do what you do, or to make certain choices, you will see that automatically, in a natural way, you will start taking on the challenges that you find on your way, rather than choosing the easy way out. That's why you have to be courageous. You have to be courageous because every time you look inside yourself, and more, as a result of this, you will see who you really are. And that's not always nice. Everybody wants to be perfect. Everybody wants to have all the skills of living life in a perfect way. But that's not the reality. So you find out that you have a tendency to be lazy, for example. And I can safely say that 99% of the people here have such a tendency. Very important is that you find out, for example, that you are lacking control. That was one of my big obstacles. Every time you try something, you give up after a couple of weeks or a couple of months because you get distracted. You'd rather sit in a bar, drink beer, or meet your friends, or walk in the park, rather than doing what you think you want to do. And as a yogi, there are people who live their lives until the end, like that, always struggling, never being happy, never being satisfied, never being able to fulfill their wishes. As a yogi, you are aware of that. And you say to yourself, damn, always I give up. Always I start something and I never finish it. From now on, I never give up anymore. Whatever it is that I do from now on, I will finish it until the end. And then also you stop doing 10 things at the same time, you do one thing. And you do it fully. Until the end. That is the start of taking control. And it is the result of all this. Observation, more and more concentration, becoming more and more connected with yourself, with your heart. That is the result of all this. So you have to be really courageous. You will find many good characteristics in you, which you've never suspected, but you will also find some things that are not desirable. And the usual tendency of people being confronted with undesirable characteristics is just to ignore them, just pretend as if they don't exist. From now on, we stop doing that. Dharana is the stage after observation, and you have a feeling that you can pinpoint nada and stay with nada also, concentrate on it. You start more and more concentrating, not allowing your thoughts to wander away with you. So the element of awareness is very important in this process. Otherwise you just unconsciously let your thoughts flow and you end up kind of daydreaming, which is not bad. But here we try to take control of everything. But dharana literally means one pointed focus. Now there are many ways in the world. There are hundreds, probably thousands of ways of meditation, but there is actually only one. Just as there is only one yoga, there is only one method of meditation, and that is nada. And that is described in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. There are no yoga books, serious ones, the ones that the original yoga books from the past. There is not one yoga book that gives you other forms of meditation. Only nada. Om, they call it Om also. Just as there is only one yoga. And it is much simpler than many of those forms of meditation that you have. Nada is part of you, but it is also neutral, and this is important. If you concentrate on some object, that object is always connected to something, to a memory, or to an emotion, or a feeling. So that in itself will be a distraction. Nada doesn't have any distraction. It is neutral. It doesn't bring up thoughts or memories. And if it does, it is the memory of something peaceful. Because if you remember nada occurring, maybe from your childhood, it's always a moment of peace. That you were playing with your friends and you were lying in the grass or something. Or that you were lying in bed at night staring at the ceiling, totally in peace. So, if you practice dharana, if you go beyond the stage of observation, in the 15-20 minutes that we sit now, we will start every time with observation, and it is okay if you just observe the whole time. Trying to simply be quiet and simply, almost like a third person watching the flow of thoughts passing by. Like going to the riverside and sit on a bench and just watch the river flow by. A little bit like that. But if you have a feeling that you can listen to nada, you can isolate nada almost and then focus on it, focus your thoughts on it, then dharana starts. That is one-pointed focus. The point of your focus being nada. And every time that you are aware that your mind is distracted by, maybe by lunch, or you had an argument with your boss yesterday, or anything, you know, there are so many thoughts that will distract you in this 15-20 minutes. You simply bring yourself back to nada, quietly and calmly. Never become frustrated, because that will cause an avalanche of unnecessary thoughts that will distract you more. Never become angry at your inability to focus on nada. Never become frustrated, disappointed, etc., etc., etc. That's why we learn non-desire. Is that clear a little bit? The purpose of all this, eventually, is to take more and more control. We are all subject to emotions, desires, and those emotions and desires, if you look at it, if you analyze it, they are always the reason for your being in misery. Always when you are experiencing trouble in your life, it's always because of emotions and desires. So wouldn't it be nice if we could control those emotions and desires and avoid conflict and trouble and suffering? Yes, that would be very nice. Life would become very calm and peaceful. To get there, you have to simply start being aware, honestly. So here, truthfulness is very important. So you become aware of what is happening, and then you try to investigate if there is a possibility to control it, to avoid it. That is a long-term process. Yoga is the science of life, and you will see that it takes a lifetime. But it's a very nice process to see that you can handle situations that beforehand, would actually lead you into trouble. That you become angry, for example, at your boyfriend or girlfriend, and now you just handle the situation sensibly and prudently. This is a little bit related to the chakras, but I don't want to go into the chakras now, because there's a field in itself. But we will come back to this the week after next week. The week after next, I think, from lesson 11, we will start discussing the chakras. And the first chakra will be the chakra in the head. So we will come back to it. Questions? Okay. Questions about desire or non-desire?
What did you mean by astral problem? It says desire is an astral problem. What is the mean by astral?
Yeah, astral problems are problems related to your emotions. Because your emotions lie on astral level. We will come back to that with the chakras also. Okay. Well, yeah.
Can you maybe talk about how this relates to like guilt and feeling guilty?
or does it relate to that? Because I feel like if I,
Like guilt in what way? About what?
about anything, I'm a very guilty person. I feel guilty about things that are like ridiculous to feel guilty about. Maybe it's because I was raised in the Catholic Church. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm a Roman
Catholic
Catholic.
guilt,
Yeah. Okay. Guilt. Okay. The sensible approach to making mistakes in life is not to destroy yourself by guilt, because it is destructive. And it is not constructive also. Why? Because it is a negative emotion that chokes off your energy circulation, and it doesn't lead to solution of the problem. Why would you feel guilty? About what? About something that you did wrong. Okay, well, we all do something wrong in our lives. That is natural. We should stop being contorted about that idea and start looking at it from a positive point of view. Mistakes we make in our lives, not consciously. There are very few people in this world who do evil things by choice, because they like it. And those who do, most of them are locked away permanently. Keys thrown away. So what does that mean? That means that the mistakes that we make happen out of ignorance. It just happens because we have not learned something about life yet. So we make a mistake, and then? Does it make sense to feel guilty? Yes, but you have to immediately do something with the guilt. Learn your lesson from your mistake. That is why you make a mistake. You make mistakes to learn, so that you can progress in life. So it's useless to lose yourself in guilt feelings. It is better to... It is natural for everybody, if you have a conscience, to feel guilty. But you have to do something with it. The same as when you feel pain. When you feel pain, the first thing people do, especially here, is go to the drugstore and buy something to oppress it. But pain is a signal that there is something wrong, so you have to figure out what is wrong and do something about that. And then do something about the cause of that pain. If the pain is unbearable, okay, then you find something to oppress it. But most of the cases you don't need a doctor. You don't need a medicine. 99% of the cases. So you have to do something with that signal. The signal of guilt is good, so that you become aware of what has gone wrong, and then you try to figure out what went wrong, why it went wrong, and so you learn a very valuable lesson about life. And you go to the next level. And you do that 100 times, 1,000 times, and you become mature. You become wise as a result of this process. So stop thinking in terms of making mistakes being wrong. Everybody makes mistakes. A child learns to walk, falling and standing up again. And a parent, a wise parent, allows the child to fall and hurt itself. And it will run like an Olympic runner if it is allowed to do that. The same way with yourself. You know, there are things that have happened in the past. Now that we are becoming conscious human beings, in the process of our practice of yoga, we become aware of things that we did in the past. And when we think of it, we cringe. Ooh, I wish that never happened. I wish I'd never done that. I wish I didn't hurt that person that time. I wish I hadn't done something so stupid. Well, you can lose yourself in maybe self-pity or guilt. But this is just a process. Better look at why those things happen understand also, this is one of the first things that you have to learn, understand that it happened because of ignorance. You didn't know. It was only after the fact that you realized that you did something wrong. Or even many years later, because it has been stuck in your subconscious until now. Or until you start becoming aware of it. So, mistakes we make only to learn something. Remember this. Very important. So guilt is only a trigger to make you conscious of the mistake, then try to do something positive with it. First of all, understand that it's out of ignorance, and second, understand that it's only to teach you a lesson. And then go on. Of course, you apologize if you hurt somebody, you did something wrong to somebody. You do that if necessary. If you think that it is constructive, you can do that also with the things that have happened in the past, long time ago. Make it discussable in one way or another. But be careful also not to cause a very awkward situation. Sometimes it's just no use to go back 20 years in the past, 15 years or whatever, 30 years. Try to do something constructive with it, and next time you try to avoid making that mistake again. But you will see, you will make another mistake. We have to have a little bit a lighter attitude towards it, with a smile. And you will see also, your mistakes will be less and less. As a result of your wanting to learn from it. That's where you're going. It's good that you mentioned this. I received an email also about increased sensitivity as a result of the practice of yoga. That is why I mentioned the Alice Bailey books. Because as a result of your practice of yoga, your sensitivity increases. All your senses will become more agile, sharper. You feel more, you see more, you taste more, you smell more. But also your sixth sense improves, and you start becoming aware of many things that you were not aware of before. And that is what in the beginning of your yoga practice may bother you. This is a known phenomenon, and Alice Bailey calls it the diseases of the disciple. And it is important that you know this. It is a stage that you go through, most of you, as a result of your increased sensitivity, but you will go through. And the fastest way to go through it is by being aware of it. In my case, I practice yoga for many years without guidance. I have lived through that increased sensitivity for many, many years. You don't have to do that if you are aware of it. That's why from the beginning I mentioned about it, and that's why from the beginning also I mentioned the books of Alice Bailey. I mentioned last week also, I told you something about a guy in Holland who is a couple of years older than me, who lost his wife, his career, his house, his dream. He did the same as I did. He followed his heart and became a yoga teacher. He lost his family. He left everything behind. And now he also lost his yoga. And he just doesn't want to live anymore. That is very sad. Why am I telling you this? Yeah, the diseases of the disciple. If he, I wrote him an email indirectly through another friend. If he would only look back at the yamas and the niyamas, he was a teacher. Remember? He was a yoga teacher. He has been teaching people about yama and niyama, about non-violence, truthfulness, non-desire, etc. And now he is losing himself. He's losing his life because he has failed to implement those principles in his own life. He just forgot about it. So So you should go back to the basics again. That happens sometimes. And you should never give up. He gave up. My friend spoke to him and he said, I will live in some community, Osho. And how about picking up your life again and get a job or start something? No, I don't have to do that anymore in my life. He's only 51 or so. Totally gave up, fatalistic. I understand his feeling. I've had the same kind of experience when in Itaewon the school had to close, when I decided to close. But I didn't give up. I made plans for what to do next. I was just as desperate as he was at that moment. Diseases of the disciple, very important to understand that all this is happening, and that's why I told you to send me an email whenever you have doubt or feel conflict. Send me an email, then I will kick you in the virtual world. I will kick you under your ass or grab you in your neck and put you on the rails again. Because it is all predictable and it is all understandable. And if you just have a little insight, you will say, ah, yeah. And that will create room for you to go on from there. And you don't have to live in that insecurity and instability for so many years as I did. And that's one of the main purposes of this course, that while we study the subjects that we have according to schedule, that you also from the beginning know how to deal with the changes that will occur, the transformations that will occur. Some of you may not feel much at all changing, but I know there are many of you who do from the beginning already feel that things are transforming, opening up, increased sensitivity. Also doubt rises up. Increased emotionality also can occur. You have to be aware of that. And when it happens, you say, my teacher told me about that, rather than sitting in the corner and feeling desperate or not knowing what's going on. What is the characteristic of a yogi? What is the characteristic of a yogi? That is his super sensitivity. Every yogi, if he is real, for real, he is super sensitive being. You can't avoid becoming super sensitive because your practice leads to that. What you are doing, in fact, I very often use an analogy with cars. What you are doing, in fact, is you take a 30-year-old Mini Cooper, the very little ones, Mr. Bean drives. You take a very little, small, old Mini Cooper, and you turn it into a Formula One racing car. How? By fine-tuning, upgrading. More energy, more powerful engine with rocket fuel in the tank. Big tires, strong suspension. That is a yogi. Lots of energy, very sensitive. That is a yogi. You understand that? That is what is happening as a result of your yoga practice. So you have to have a moral foundation. That is important. The yamas and the niyamas, if you get stuck and you read them again, you find an answer there. Most of the times. Non-desire, today's subject, is often very much understood. And it is also abused by, for example, sect leaders. Leaders of sects, religious sects, yoga sects, whatever, spiritual sects, they often say to their followers, they say, you have to practice non-desire. So hand over your bank account to me, sell your house, give me the proceeds of your house, and you live in austerity. You control your desire, but give everything to me. That is a very obvious form of abuse. Non-desire doesn't mean that you have to live in a cave somewhere high in the mountains with only a loincloth and you eat only grass and drink water from the source. Maybe it is good to experience something like that for a period, temporarily, just to make yourself stronger. Because to do something like that, you have to have a high level of control, and you have to develop a high level of determination, which, when you come down from the mountain, will be very helpful in the rest of your life. But non-desire doesn't ask you to live in poverty. It asks you to be aware of your desire and to try to approach your desires in a sensible way. The same as we approach chastity, brahmacharya, which we discussed last week. The approach has to be sensible. That means, how do you do that? Again, by being aware of what is going on. You are aware of your desires, and instead of drawing your wallet or your credit card and get what you want, you first consciously ask yourself, you consult with yourself. Is this really what I want? Is this for real? Or is this fake? Is it just an image that is being pumped into my mind that tries to manipulate me into having the sense that I need something but actually I don't? In the world that we live in, industrialized, wealthy, marketers, salespeople, they're very skillful at manipulating your desire. They make you believe that you need something that you actually don't. That's why economies are booming. People have no control over their wallets because they have no control over their desire. So you have to consciously consult with yourself whether this is really something that you need. Buddha has said, and you can find this back in Buddhist scriptures also, and in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika it is also described, in other words, that you need to have a basis of wealth to develop spiritually. Why? Because if you live in the streets, you never know what you're going to eat tonight. You have no relative comfort. You cannot be comfortable and stable to practice your yoga, to meditate. And you can see this also. Countries that, for example, after the Second World War, the countries that have become wealthy after the Second World War, spirituality is rising among the people, even though they don't go to church or don't go to yoga, but just in a natural way. Why? That is based upon their harmony that is created as a result of their relative wealth. There is another side of the coin here, of course. There are people in those wealthy societies that have no control at all, and they totally lose it. They give themselves over to alcohol, drugs, hamburgers, whatever. They go to the bank to get a loan because the bank is advertising loans. They get in deep financial troubles, but they want to have this big car with the shiny wheels, and they can't afford it, but the bank gives them a loan. So there are people that are not able, who are not able to handle that kind of wealth, but the growth of the people most people use that stability to develop. They get more education than they would have otherwise. They have their children also educated, also morally and in all kinds of ways. And people get a very solid foundation, and based upon that, spirituality comes naturally. There is something very funny going on in Holland, for example. Maybe 60% of people claim to be atheist. But when you hear those people talking or commenting on the internet, they always lean towards religiosity. Only they don't believe in the God as they were taught with their religious background, based upon their Christianity or Roman Catholic background. And more interestingly, on the BBC I read an article a couple of months ago where they did some research to religion, and the conclusion was that atheists know more about religion than the people who claim to be religious. Have you read this? That opened my eyes. Intuitively I knew that already. I'm an atheist too, you could say. But then, yes, I said, yes, this makes sense. I've always known this. They just reject the old dusty idea of the Vatican or of Hinduism, or they see what is happening in the Islamic world and they say, man, this can never be meant to be. What kind of God is that? So they try to look at it more from a humanistic point of view. They try to understand. And that's intellectual people who do that. Approach your desire in a sensible way, consciously, and you know what? When you get something, get the best. Don't get 100 different kind of things. Get only one thing, but get the best. Why? Because that brings you to heaven. How does that work? How can you go to heaven from a material thing? Matter is there for you to go to heaven. So if you drink a cup of coffee, drink a good cup of coffee. Nice one. One that you really like. Don't drink 10 of those cups. No, drink only one. But get the best coffee you get. Instead of, we call it dishwater in Holland. Or dishwashing water. If you really like coffee, I like coffee. So one day I bought an espresso machine and I boil a little bit of milk in the microwave and I pour an espresso on it. Delicious, and I take one small cup in the morning and that's it. But I buy daily cafe. My God, 25,000 won for one can. If you go to Costco, you have the content of 6 cans for 15,000 won. I tried that one too. Terrible. That didn't bring me to heaven, but the Indie Cafe does. But if I drink 2 or 3, my God, I become so skittish and I'm stiff. You know, we in Holland say you're stiff from caffeine. Just one little cup. You understand? You buy a car, buy a good one. Maybe it costs a little more to have an air conditioning, but it brings you to heaven. Every time you step into the car and you drive it, it is such a big pleasure. That is spiritual, believe it or not, but it is. If you buy a rambling Lada from the former Soviet Union, because everybody should be equal in this world, communism, Marxism, I don't know what, you buy a Lada. In Holland there were many of these kind of people. After the war, everybody should be equal, and then today your wheel falls off and tomorrow your engine doesn't start, and every time you drive you think, my God, is this a car? It's more like a tank. Spend a little more, have a nice one, and every time you drive, oh my God. I have a tongja. You know what tongja means? Shit car. But it drives so nice. It has a CVT. You know CVT, constant variable transmission? CVT, you don't have to shift. Although I don't mind about that, but very smooth. It's a Deumatis. You know Deumatis? Yeah. Before I was like that, very austere. I could have bought a bigger car, but I just bought the smallest car because I was busy during my yoga school. So very controlled. I bought a 60,000 won electronic range. How do you call these things? Magnetron. Microwave. I bought a 60,000 won microwave. You can buy them for 200,000-300,000 won with all kinds of buttons and dials. I bought everything the cheapest. But that was because I was building something and there was no stability, and so I didn't want to spend 1 penny too much, 1 won too much. Very austere. If I'm stable, then I will try to look for more quality. That's the next step. Maybe you are not in such a situation. I was in such a situation because I left everything behind. I started all over again here with nothing. And I was in a very unstable relationship, which I knew would sooner or later collapse. And then I would be on my own. So I prepared for the future in that way, very controlled. I didn't realize at the time that I was doing it in that way, consciously, but that's what I later understood. Next time I'll buy a Ferrari, of course. And a 500,000 won microwave. No, non-desire. Desire brings many people into trouble. That is why this issue is important. You have to look at yourself. And you get rid of that simply by being aware that you are full of desire, that your desire is forcing you to do something. The moment that you are aware of it, you already have an advantage. And you can say, hey, wait a minute. Am I allowing this to happen or not? Well, if it is something that you need, then you make very consciously, you make a choice to get something that's good also. But if you consciously come to the conclusion that actually you don't need it, it is other motives that are behind, manipulating you to get into a commitment or buying something, then you just decide not to do it. And if you are in doubt, simply postpone. Simply postpone. And later, if you don't know what to do today, just postpone. That is also making a decision. And sooner or later you will get the answer, whether you need it or not. What this means is that you learn to play with your desires. That's important. At a much later age, I learned a very important lesson from my childhood. When I was 4 years old or something. As a child, you know only one shop in your neighborhood. That's the toy shop. And the candy store. And every time you pass by the toy shop, your nose is, that's why my nose is flat here in the front. Your nose is glued to the window and you are staring yourself blind at all those toys and toy cars and things you see there. You want to have that. If there were no window in between, you would grab it and take it home. And there was this big plastic fire truck, red, with ladders and hoses and things, and I had to have that one, and I was already counting, and I thought, oh my God, it's all 4 months. I have to wait until my birthday, and for a little child, it's very long, incredibly long. But my mom knew I wanted to have that, and she said no. too big and too expensive. And but I'm very stubborn. I continue to hammer on the fact that I wanted to have that fire truck. And I got it. But you know, the terrible part of the story is that I got it, and I played with it once, and I lost interest. I just lost interest. And this is a very important lesson, because there was just an illusion of this fire truck, and having it, you play with it, and then it is not what you thought it would be. And that will repeat itself until you become aware of it. Surely you have had the same experience in your life. But when you know that consciously, when you realize that, you avoid that in the future. So you ask yourself honestly, do I really want that? Is that really what I need? Why is desire dangerous? Because desire kills people. You know that? Not directly, but it blocks your energy. And if you live full of desire of something for many years, and you cannot fulfill that desire, it will turn into a disease which will eventually kill you. But on a more practical level, desire blocks your energy. It causes a field of tension that blocks your energy circulation. And so you end up in the tamas condition. And tamas condition is a condition of standstill. That is the condition most people live in. Maybe if you look at your family or friends, you will see that many people are actually standing still. They only get older throughout the years, but there's no change, or hardly any change. There's no progress, nor regression. People just get a little bit older over time. That's the result of tamas. Tamas is inertia. It's the opposite of dynamism. Tamas is inertia. And also mentally, this very much affects people. And many people who are suffering from anxiety and depression, that is a result of tamas condition in the brain. So the way to counter that is to create, ideally, you create sattva, of course, but before you are there, you create first some rajas to counter the tamas condition. Do you have questions about non-desire?
I'm curious about if you can make a greater distinction between when we should surrender and when we should give up, and what the relationship between desire and not giving up is.
That is something everybody should find out personally. I cannot give you a recipe for that, because I knew about this, I studied about this, but there are some forces at work in life, there are forces at work in you that have to do with survival. That have to do with your essence, essential characteristics. And those have to find a way also to express themselves. And sometimes they can be violent, and sometimes they can be desirous. But that is important to go through a certain stage in your life where it expresses itself, so that it can materialize and settle down, and then you can start taking control of it. This is maybe a little bit complicated explanation. I was in a very difficult relationship, and that relationship made me very desirous of being independent. And to become independent, you have to do certain things. So that is not really, that is a very strong desire, of course, to be independent, but it's also survival instinct. For example, to avoid ending up in that desperate state that this friend in Holland is, who just gave up everything. I am too stubborn to give up, so I'll always find a way out. And that has led me to lose all the hair on my head, like you. You deliberately cut it off. Yeah? The rest of the hair on the side that doesn't fall out, that became white, that is the result of dealing with things that I did not agree with, or that I wanted to pursue in life. That means there was a lot of violence towards myself, maybe. Yeah. But, and that's why I'm saying that it's very individual. I had many things to correct from my past. I had so many things to correct from my past. And one of the reasons to come to Korea and get away from Holland was to do that. One of the reasons not to want to go back to Holland is because I found my essence here, and I did correct all the things that I had to correct from the past. Maybe not all 100%, but anyway. And that is not always possible if you follow everything you learn to the letter. So you have to do what you have to do. That sounds stupid. You have to do what you have to do. And while doing it, you try to control it with what you learn. You try to be aware when you go too far, for example. And I deliberately went too far, knowing that I had to go too far, just because that is part of the process of my life. Some of you know that I came to Korea to practice Hapkido. Hapkido is a Korean martial art. And I did that very fanatically. It was so violent. But I had to go through that stage. While doing that, I started gradually teaching yoga, and it expanded more and more. And at a certain point, I just totally lost interest in Hapkido. And I knew, before I came to Korea, I knew that I would one day lose interest. But until then, I had to follow that obsession. It was purely an obsession. So, you know, I'm an expert by practical experience. And you will become so too. And that is why you have to be courageous also, because you start becoming an expert once you face all this consciousness. Everything. Your past, your characteristics, your behavior, everything you have to face. As a result of this, you put the dots together and you come to all kinds of insights, very valuable insights, wisdom. But I cannot give you a recipe. I can give you hints, I can give you suggestions, I can share my experiences and insights, but then it is up to you to go out into the playground and experiment and build your own framework. And depending on how distorted your past was or how harmonious your past was, you will have a lot of things to do or not. For me, I come from a big family. My mom was very conscientious in taking care of her children, but only in a materialistic way. Big family, kind of poor. So my past was very paradoxical, very harmonious because of my mom's stability, but no input. Only very regular. My mom was always there. She never, even when she divorced, having to take care of 7 children, she never said, I don't feel like cooking now, so here you have a couple of euros and go to the snack shop and get yourself a French fry or something. Never. Always there was tea after school with a cookie, always there was breakfast, lunch and dinner. Never failed to do that. That has given me an incredible stability, but that was all. And everything else I had to figure out myself. Sorry, Sujin. Can somebody help Sujin bringing a bunch of meds to the other room? I should have done that before the class. So non-desire, also like the other aspects that we have studied so far, do not become fanatic. But, and maybe this comes back to your question a little bit, if you feel a need, a deep need inside you that drives you almost to do that, it means that you have something to work out for yourself. Then maybe you do have to leave everything behind, go up to the mountain into a cave, or you can go to some temple somewhere in a remote place and then do that. But you know, when that is the case, if it is an obsession, when that is the case, you know already before you do that, you know that it is temporary. You know that it is something that you have to work out because of some deep impression in you. And then you just do that. But you also keep your eyes open, because there will be a day that it is time to leave your cave, and you come down from the mountain at the time that you feel that. You put on your normal clothes and you start, from there you start life, based upon your experiences. So desire, play with it, but do it consciously. Like the red fire truck, it took me 30 years to understand what it meant, or 25 years or so, after that moment. But I think it is because of yoga that that memory came back and that it taught me a very valuable lesson about desire. Because it very often goes like that. If something that you really want, the moment that you have it, it almost already lost its importance. But when it comes to essential things in your life, like the coffee machine, for example, that's also not essential. But then get a nice one and get good quality coffee. When it comes to clothes, for example, do not be blinded by what it looks like only. There are many clothes that look very nice, very fancy, fashionable, but for example, they are made from superficial fiber, how do you call that?
Polyester.
Yeah, like polyester and other things that it looks nice colors, nice shape, but when you wear it, it's uncomfortable. So when you buy shoes, for example, you are standing. Realize the moment that you buy shoes that you are standing many hours in a day. You are walking many hours in a day. What do you need when you buy shoes? That is shoes that are adding something to your feet. Rather than looking nice and being held all day because they look nice, it's better to buy practically, based on a practical decision, and buy something that will help you support your feet and be comfortable with your feet. The same with clothes. I try always to buy cotton because other superficial material fiber makes me really uncomfortable. It makes me sweat also. And it doesn't feel good, nice. If you can afford it, buy satin sheets for your bed. That is heaven too, you know. That is so nice, and you spend 7-8 hours a day in your bed. Why not then have nice sheets? So you have to look at everything in a very rational way. Rich people understand this. Rich people have, their houses are almost like museums. They have, but not too much. It's not overdone. But they have nice flower bouquet here and there, even in the toilet. They have a nice painting here and there, not too much, but nice. And that whole atmosphere is very spiritual in a way. That is the purpose of a museum, is to touch people's heart and give them a touch of heaven in that way. That is the purpose of good quality products. That is the purpose of beauty. That is why I'm telling you, when you buy something, then buy a good one. Buy a good quality product, even if it costs more. Simply because it is not just a tool or a material thing. It is something that can touch your heart and raise your consciousness. It can help you to connect with the divine. Sounds ridiculous maybe, but along the way you will start to understand this. Some years ago, I was having private classes at people's homes, some rich people in Korea. The people who produce electronics and cars in Korea, and at that time Korea was not so much developed yet, and people were very patriotic, and there were campaigns to buy Korea only, and there was hostility towards foreign products. And those companies that produce those Korean products, cars and electronics, who are also behind the campaigns, together with the government, that you have to buy Korean. They had the nicest equipment from abroad. Their cars were German. All their audio and video equipment is German. And all their the air conditioners and heating and everything, the climate systems in their houses, all Japanese. When I noticed that, I just smiled. And I thought, how can a whole population of 48 million people be so deceived by those people? It was even so if you had a foreign car at that time, it would be scratched. Just because it's a foreign car. Rich people know this. They get the best of the best because money is not an issue for them. We can do this in our own scale, on our own level, on our own scale. And just when you get something, when you need something, don't get too much, but when you get it, you get something nice. You will see. So that is non-desire. Non-desire you have to look at in a flexible way. never in a fanatic or rigid way. But if you feel the need to go into a cave, that will be very constructive in your further development. But for most people, that is just not reasonable. Just the same way as that I felt I had to come to Korea and kill myself in a Hapkido gym for 2.5 years. That is, for other people, that is ridiculous and stupid and crazy. But I just had to do that. I knew if I had not done that, I would regret it for the rest of my life. It was an obsession that I had since I was 20 or so. So I just had to do that. Done. And now it's behind, it's done. But don't look back. Understand? So you have to find out yourself. Sometimes you have to break the rules, but you do that consciously, knowing that that is something, you can call it karma. My karma was such that I needed to do that. And in the same way, it is possible that you need to have a period in your life where you test yourself, because that is what it is about. You test yourself on control. Going into a cave and living totally in austerity, that is a matter of control. And when you are convinced, you come out of your cave, you go into normal life, and you apply what you have learned. That's all. And for the rest, you handle this non-desire and desire, handle it in a sensible way. Questions? No? One important sentence. Someone who fights doubts, and doubt means suffering. Do you understand that doubt causes you to suffer? Do not doubt. Doubt leaves you hanging somewhere in the middle. So when you do something, do it fully, and then you come to conclusions. But doubt kills initiative. So do not give in to that. Consciously also, of course, because doubt